Hello and welcome to this new Android development course. This is part 1 on how to make a PDF reader application for Android. So let's start. We will open our Android Studio on IDE and we will click on Start a new Android Studio project. We will select Empty Activity. We will click on Next. And as the name of our application, we will call it PDF Reader, right? So PDF reader. We can put in a space between these two if we want. Make sure the selected language is Java, and this time we will use the API 16 at least. If you have the option to check these use Android X artifacts, check it. If you don't have that option, don't worry, you don't need it. We will click on Finish and we will wait for the IDE to set up our project and create our files for our PDF reader. I will be running the application on an emulator. You can do that too, or you can also run it on a real Android device. To create an emulator, you will go into Tools and APD Manager, and you just create an emulator that fits your needs, like screen size and so on, right? Great. So now the project has been created and I want to run the application to check if it is working. I will click on use same selection for future launches. And as you can see, as connected device, I have my Android Pie emulator. I'll click on OK and I will wait for the IDE to compile my code, to pack it up into an APK and to send it to my emulator. Okay, basically what we're gonna do here, we're gonna use an external library that will enable us to read PDF files. We will be setting up permissions, we will be reading them, we will be listing those files in list view, and we will be opening them. Okay, so if we see right now, the current state of the app is this, with the status bar visible, PDF reader title, and the hello world that is generated by the IDE. So now what we want to do is we gotta go inside the rest folder under the layout folder and open this activity.xml file. This is the file that contains our XML layout. As you can see, it has a constraint layout as root element, which we don't want that because we don't use that and we need something kind of simpler, like a linear layout. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to the left side right here and we will right click on activity main.xml and we will click on delete. If you have this box checked, please uncheck them and click on OK. Now the file has been deleted and we have a kind of error right here that says that we cannot resolve this file. That's okay, we will create it again, but with a different rule element. To do that, we will right click on the layout folder and we will go to new layout resource file. Inside here, the name of these will be the same as it was previously, which is activity underscore main. And as rule element, make sure you have linear layout. Okay, that's all we have to do. We click it OK, and now we have our new layout. Right here at the bottom, we can switch between design and text mode. If we go to text mode, we will see our linear layout right here, which is ready for us to work on. If we run the app again, just to check that everything is still working, let me check. We have the same we had previously, but this time we don't have the hello world text view because we don't add it yet. And we won't actually because we don't need it. That was just an example. Okay, so how this app will work? Well, basically it will start by showing a list view of all the files, or actually all the PDF files we can find on the device. So a list view is a widget that enables us to have scrolling elements on it. So let's define it inside the linear layout. We will open an element right here and gonna say list view. The width of this element will be match parent, and the height will also be match parent. We can close this element right here. We have to set this view an ID in order for us to be able to access this view from our Java code. So I'm going to say ID, and I'll call it list view. Okay, so now we have created the list view right here. Now what we wanted to do next is we want to access that list view from code. So we're gonna go to our main activity.java file, and inside this, as you can see, we have an onCreate method which was set up by the IDE. After we set content view are the layout that activity main, we have to initialize our list view. To do that, we're gonna say final list view. We import, of course, the list view class, and I'll call this element list view. And I'll set it to find view by ID r.id.listView. Okay. So now I have accessed my list view from Java code, which is great. Now what I have to do next is I have to create an adapter, which is a mechanism, is a class that enables us to display content actually in our list view. So how can we create our adapter? It's actually pretty straightforward. We will create that adapter as an inner class. So we're going to create a class inside this main activity class. To do that, we're going to type class, and I'll call this class adapter. And this class will extend, so extends base adapter. Okay? So this class will extend the base adapter class. Now what we have to do inside this class will be we have to override some methods in order for us to be able to use the adapter appropriately, either if we use them or not. So we wanted to store our data, which will be the file paths, as strings. So how can we do that? So you're gonna say list of string, okay? And I'll call this, of course, we have to import this list class. So list of string, and I'll call this list of string data, and I'll set this to new array list. Okay, awesome. Now I'm gonna create a method that will enable me to set data into that list. So I'm gonna say void set data, and the parameter I'll pass will be the list I'm gonna set. So the list of string again, and this will be called mdata in order to avoid confusions with the previous list of strings we created, which is called just data. Now inside this, what we're gonna do is we're gonna say data.clear, because we want to clear anything that was stored previously on the data. Then we're gonna say data that add all, okay, and we will add all the items of mdata into data. Okay, so basically we first clear all the values in data, and now we're adding all the values that mdata contains into just data. Okay, now that we have our new information, we have to tell the adapter that we have got this new information. So we have to tell it to display it, to update it. So you're gonna say notify dataset changed. Okay, so that's our set data method. Below that, we have to override a couple of methods. The first one that we will override will be the get count method. So you're gonna say override public int get count without any parameters, and this method will return the number of items that exist on our adapter and on our list view actually. So what we're gonna return here will be return data.size. So that's how we return the amount of data. So it knows how many cells or how many cells it needs to write. Okay, great. Now I'm gonna override a couple of more methods that we won't really use, but we have to override because of how this thing is designed. So I'm gonna say override public object get item, okay, and inside his it will receive an integer called position. Okay, if we open this, since we are not using, we will just return null because we won't be using this method, so we'll return null. Okay, next we have to override the get item ID, which again we won't be using, so we're gonna say override public long get item ID, and it will again receive a position as an int. So position, and this time what we will return will be just 0 because it's a long. So we will just return 0 because we won't be using it. So now we have to override the most important method of any adapter, which is the getView method. So let's do it. So I'm gonna say add override public view get, oops, I have to import the view class. So public view get view, okay, we open parentheses, and here we start with the first parameter, which is the position. So int position, comma, the second parameter, which is the view, which will be called convert view, okay, and then also the view group, and this will be called parent, okay. So we will open this method and we will start looking at this. So we want to create the convert view only when it's null in order for this to work more efficiently in our code. So I'm gonna say actually to recycle views, so the adapter won't have to be creating views every time. So it's a kind of a 10x improvement, right? Roughly. So you're gonna say if convert view equals null. So only when it equals null, we will inflate the view. So to inflate the view, we will create a layout inflator. So you're gonna say layout inflator, okay? And I'll call this just inflator. And I'll set this to, we'll cast the result of it to layout inflator. So just parentheses layout inflator. And now what I'm gonna do is main activity.this, which is the context I'm working on. And on the next line, I'm gonna say get system service. And inside this will be context dot layout inflator service. Okay, so that's how we create a simple layout inflator. Now we're gonna actually inflate the view into convert view. So to do that, we're gonna say convert view. I'm gonna set it to inflator that inflate, okay, and inside these we're gonna set r.layout item, but we haven't still defined that item. We will do that just after this. So inflate r.layout item, then gonna say we'll pass the parent, okay, and the attached to it will be just false. So this is how we inflate it. But as you can see, we have an error here because we haven't created the item yet. So we have to create the item. So how do we create it? So we will go inside our layout folder right here. We will right click on it. We'll click on new and layout resource file. The file name will be item. The root element will be text view because we want to show text, right? So we click on OK, and the IDE will create this file. We switch to text mode, and as you can see, this is what we have created. We don't need to extend it too much, so we can do this and delete this. We can improve the bit the way this is ordered, and here I have to set the ID. So I'm gonna say ID, and I'll set it to item. Okay, you can have another ID. Doesn't have to be the same ID as the as the file name. You can have a different one, but for simplicity reasons, I'm just setting it to item. The layout width will be set to match parent, but the layout height will be set to something we want to make our row how big, depending how big we want to make it. In this case, I'm gonna set it to 50 dp, right? I'm gonna set the gravity of this to center vertical, and I'm gonna set the padding to 16 dp. So these settings are just to make it visually appealing, so kind of nice to look at. Okay, so if you want to preview how this will look like, you click on preview, and as you can see, we have a white rectangle at the top, and this is how big each row of our list view will be. Okay, great. So that's it for this item.xml file. We can close it and go back to our main activity.java. And as you can see now, it finds this item right here. So what we're gonna do, we have to keep writing our getView method. So the previous lines were in the case that the convert view is null. So outside the if statement, we're gonna do the following. We're gonna do and create a text view. So it's gonna be text view, and I'll call this text view, and I'll set it to convert view dot find view by ID. Find view by ID r.id.item. Not invisible, sorry. The auto-completion is messed up. So item. Great. So that's the text view. We are using the convert view, saying add or get this view from the convert view, right? So now we can change the text view text, or set the text of the text view. To do that, we're gonna say text view, lowercase, dot set text. In this case, we're gonna set the corresponding file name, PDF file name, right? So how do we get them? Well, the corresponding PDF file name is stored on the data array list, right? So we have to do and say data dot get and the value at position, right? And basically that's how we update the text on our text view. And of course, since this is a view, we have to return a view. So we're gonna say return convert view. And basically that's how we create an adapter, a very, very simple adapter. We only have a way to set data, get count. These two are ignored because we were not using them. And the most important one is the get view method. Okay? Great. So now that we have an adapter, we have to use it actually. So how do we use it? So we go to our onCreate method, and just after we created our list view object, we're gonna create an adapter object, the adapter that we just made. So an object of the type we just created. Okay, so to simplify these more, we're gonna do that as a global variable. So I'm gonna set adapter, and I'll call it just adapter as a global variable, right? And here, after I initialize the list view, I'm gonna say adapter, and I'll set it to new adapter. Okay? So why I make this a global variable? Well, because I want to access it from outside the onCreate method, right? So I have to make it global in order for me to be able to access it. Now you can make these private if you want. Yeah, that's a good practice too. So we have our new adapter here. And now we have to connect the adapter with our list view, right? Yeah. So we have to connect the adapter with our list view. So you can say list view dot set adapter and adapter, because that's the adapter we want to connect it to, which is of course great. Now we have our list view ready. but we still haven't set the data. So if we want to set the data, kind of an example data, we will also create that data object as global variable. So you can do it private if you want. So private list of string, and I'll call it data, and I'll set it to new array list. Okay, great. Now, when I wanted to set the data, I have to first fill the data. So I will create a for loop. So I'm gonna say for int I equals 0, I less than a number, for example, 100, if I want 100 items, and I'll set I plus plus. Now inside this for loop right here, I have to fill data into my data array list. So I'm gonna say data dot add, and I'll add hello I am, and I will plus I. So I am the number. So when we concatenate a integer with a string, the system automatically converts the integer into string, so we don't have to say string that value of or anything like that. So basically now we have 100 entries on our data, and we have to tell the adapter that we have that new data. To do that, we're gonna say adapter dot set data, and what I'll pass will be, of course, data. Okay, so now we will run the app to check if it is working as we expect. Okay, so here it is, and here I have my PDF reader, and I have the data inside here. As you can see, it said the first element says hello I'm 0, hello I'm 1, hello I'm 2, and as I was telling you, here we have we are able to scroll through this list view. We have all the way up to hello I am 99, right? So that's basically how we create an array list. Now, every entry here, we can modify its behavior or whatever the case may be. For example, I want to make the text color a bit darker. So how can I do that? Well, I'm gonna go to our item.xml file right here, and I'm gonna define a new color. Well, to define a new color, I have to go inside the values folder down here, and here I'll open the color.xml file. And inside here we have three colors that the IDE generated by default, but we want to add another color. We want to create the black color. So we're gonna say color name, and we're gonna type black. And to define black color in RGB hex, we do a number sign, and then we follow it with 6 zeros. Okay, so now we have 6 zeros there, and this means black. As you can see right here, you can see kind of a small preview of the color you're creating. So now we have created this black color, which can be used from any part of our application. So we're gonna go to item.xml file, and we're gonna tell the system that we want the text of these, or of every cell, of every row view, to be black, right? Because we like the black color. So I'm gonna say text color, and I'll set it to black. Actually, add color / black. And that's how we set the text color to black. Now, if we want to check that it worked, we're gonna run the app again and actually check it. And as you can see, now we have a darker color, a black color. And the text is, of course, centered vertically, as we set right here. The padding, which is the space between the borders on the text, is 16 dp, because that looks nice. Again, that's just design kind of aesthetics, but you can change it if you want. Now, what we're gonna do, maybe we say, hey, we want to have a cleaner look. We don't really need these two bars at the top, or maybe we don't want to show we want to show only one of them. So now we'll teach you how you can hide them. So I'm gonna go to styles.xml under the values folder, and here is the theme of our application. So if we want to hide the status bar, which is the bar at the top, which contains the clock and the battery, and we don't need that for our app. If you decide you don't need, you can leave it if you want. But in the case you don't want it, we're gonna say window full screen, window full screen. So Android window full screen, and we'll set it to true. Okay, now if we run the app, it will go in full screen mode, so it will hide the top bar. As you can see, the top bar is now hidden. Now, you can do it if you want, if not, that's okay. Now, if you want to also hide this bar right here that says PDF Reader, because you don't want that bar maybe, so you can do that too from the theme configuration. So we're gonna create a new item, and this time we're gonna be window no title, and we will set that to true. Okay, so we will run the app again, and we will check if it worked. And as you can see here, we have our new app without a title. So right now we have a clean app that shows a list of the things that we have. In the future, these will show the list of the files we have. We still have to ask for permissions and all of that. We will do that on the following videos, okay? So that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I see you in the next one. Bye.